Welcome to the Moved to Meditate podcast. I'm your host, Addie D. Hilster. If you're a yoga practitioner or teacher who knows that there's more to yoga than poses, but you're wondering where to find that, come join our quiet little party. Here you'll find resources to help you deepen your practice, as well as insightful conversations with yoga, movement, and meditation teachers from a range of traditions. On this podcast, we spotlight the more contemplative aspects of movement practice. So we talk about all things gentle yoga, meditation, yin, restorative, yoga therapy, mindfulness, and more. Listen in and connect to a community of like-minded practitioners. Hey everybody, this is Addie here today, and it's just me. I'm recording a solo episode about some of the key attitudes that I think are really helpful to bring into any kind of mindful movement or mindful yoga practice. So these are kind of just like elements of our approach that can help orient us to practicing with a sense of mindfulness and in a way that's cultivating that kind of awareness in our practice. And hopefully you'll find these helpful. Hopefully you'll find some of these really familiar. And I think I have about 8 of them, so I could probably keep going and add more, but this should be a good start. It should be enough for us to process for today. So I'm going to just jump right into these key attitudes, or might even think of them as wise views and wise intentions for movement practice. So the first one is the attitude that the body is not an object. The body is not a thing. It's not a machine. It's not like this external thing that we manipulate, from the control tower of our mind. The body is not at all separate from the mind and from our thinking and our feeling. These are all like just different layers of our same self. And the body is like a living being, and it has a lot to teach us. So this first attitude is about having a deep respect for the body itself as our main teacher in the practice. There might be another human being guiding and leading and giving instructions and cues in the practice, but your body is actually your main teacher. So that's the first one. The second key attitude is really a pair of qualities of metta and compassion. And metta is this word from the Buddhist tradition. In Pali, it's metta. It's also in the yoga tradition. The word in Sanskrit is maitri. And what it means is loving kindness or goodwill or friendliness, which is one of my favorite translations. And it's like a baseline of friendliness and goodwill and, friendly goodwill that we want to extend to everyone around us, but also to ourselves as kind of like our default setting. So we practice in order to have this metta be like our natural way of being in the world, or our way of being with ourselves or being with our body. Compassion is a slightly different flavor of this, which is a sense of care when we meet struggle. So it's how we respond when there's more difficulty or stress or struggle, or maybe there's pain. So we can bring compassion into our response, whether it's to an emotional struggle or a feeling of pain in the body or a challenge in our practice. We can bring this sense of compassion, or karuna is the word in both Pali and Sanskrit. So that's our second key attitude, is to have this sense of baseline friendliness or metta, and sometimes that we deepen that into a sense of compassion and care when there's struggle. Okay, number 3 is gratitude and equanimity. So it's another pair. So I guess I'm cheating, and there's really more than 8 in here, but gratitude and equanimity, I think, go together well. And to me, in a movement practice, gratitude is not only remembering the things in our life that we're thankful for, like our health and our relationships and all of the good things around us, but it's a sense of also appreciating in the body what is already okay. Whatever in our body is working well and that's already fine, we can bring some sense of appreciation to that. That's like a form of gratitude practice. And it helps to steady us when there are challenges or when there's pain or there's struggle, because we can remember that there are areas that are fine and things that are already okay. So we can practice that gratitude. And I think that it connects to this quality of equanimity, which is our steadiness and our ability to kind of navigate through the ups and downs of experience. And we practice this sense of equanimity when we get on our mat, because we give ourselves little challenges, or we notice things are different from day to day, and we cultivate this sense of being steady even through those different kinds of fluctuations and changes. Okay, so that was number 3, gratitude and equanimity together. Okay, next is curiosity and freshness. This is the 4th sense of key attitudes that I like to bring into the practice. And to approach our practice with curiosity means that we're not coming into it with assumptions. And yes, we have a memory of what it was like yesterday or what it was like 5 years ago, but we want to kind of like drop those assumptions, because they can make it hard to see what's really true here in the present moment. They can create this like kind of fog of expectation. So we want to let that go and see if we can really just meet the moment as it is and meet the body and the practice in that moment without assumptions. Maybe we can do more than we thought, or maybe something that used to feel good no longer feels good. So letting go of the assumptions gives us the freedom to respond to exactly how things are. And I combine this curiosity word with the word freshness here in this 4th key attitude, curiosity and freshness, because I think it makes room for some sense of like improv and letting yourself follow your own intuitions and not being locked into a certain way of doing it. Like it's always correct to do it this way and not that way. This gives us some freedom to experiment and to just, try things on and see what feels right. Okay, so that's 4. And it's kind of more than 4, because some of them are really like multiple ideas in one, but that's okay. These are complex in certain ways, and we can allow that. So let's move on to the 5th one, which is impermanence. So impermanence is knowing that things change. And we all know that, I think, in a common sense kind of way. But we can really track it in our practice on our mat and in our meditation, because we can start to see like how the breath is different, how our energy is different on different days, how poses feel different, bring up different sensations on different days, how our moods change. We can really witness that process of change. And again, cultivating the sense of equanimity, learning to be present with what is, so we don't have to resist the impermanence and the truth of change. Okay, so allowing and recognizing impermanence. And then moving on to the 6th quality is non-judgment. And underneath of that, non-comparing and non-competing. So those are sort of like different ways of saying the same thing, I think. That, we want to approach our practice in a way where we are not constantly judging ourselves or evaluating ourselves like it's a performance and we have to get it right or get a good grade, and we catch ourselves doing that. So it's really more about watching our mind and being aware of how it's reacting and what is going on in there, so we can start to make some shifts if needed, if we can start to influence ourselves in a different direction, so that we're not comparing ourselves to other students or to the teacher or to our past self or our ideal future self and judging ourselves according to that comparison where inevitably we fall short. And we're not competing. We're not making the practice into some kind of competition where we always have to be the best or getting better or beating someone else or, getting first prize. If we can just let go of all of that, there's a lot less pressure, and we can actually just enjoy being present and cultivate a lot of these other qualities that aren't so available, like metta and friendliness and goodwill is not always available when we're stuck in a kind of competitive, judging mindset. The curiosity and the freshness, that's not really available when we're stuck in this kind of mode of I've got to get it right, it's got to be the best. There's not a lot of room for experimentation and learning something new in that mindset. Okay, so I've got 2 more, and you can see how they really interrelate and they overlap. Okay, I think this would be number 7. So this is to be oriented towards exploration rather than achievement. That really follows on from the last one about non-judgment and non-competitiveness, but to really embrace the sense of this is an exploration. My yoga mat is a laboratory. I get to try things out here. I get to explore, and I don't have to achieve anything. So sometimes my phrase for this is that the practice is more about showing up versus showing off. We don't need to have an end product that we can show off at the end. We don't have to have something to show for doing this practice. We can feel the impact of it when we show up for ourselves. We can feel the value of that intrinsically. So this is the orientation towards exploring and being present for ourselves rather than having an achievement or a gain of that kind at the end. Okay, and then lastly, to be mindful of our relationship with intensity. And I think this one's really interesting because we kind of live in a world that likes intensity and it kind of likes drama. And, kind of like the higher, the faster, the louder, the better, right? So sometimes we can use that intensity for transformation and making change. And other times it kind of gets us in trouble and we get kind of addicted to that sense of things always being really intense. So we can use sensation, the feeling of the body, the feeling of a stretch, the feeling of effort in a pose to wake up connection with the body and use intensity to kind of like actually feel ourselves. And that can be really helpful. But we can also learn as the practice matures to be interested in subtlety and simplicity and not always be really driven by or dependent on the sensation seeking or the intensity of sensation. It's like the volume knob, right? We don't always have to have the volume on really loud in order to be benefiting from our practice. And we can kind of track this relationship that we have with giving ourselves challenges and allowing for intensity when it's there, but not always having to have it be so intense or complicated. So we can appreciate both ends of that spectrum of subtlety and intensity and be aware of the choices that we're making. So maybe I'll talk more about that another time. I think that's a rich area to kind of like delve into, and how we relate to sensation and intensity and emotional intensity and complexity and all those kinds of things. But this is enough for now. So let me just recap for you these qualities, these key attitudes that I'm bringing forward today that help to support our mindful movement and mindful yoga practice. So first one was the body is not an object. It's not a thing. The second one was to cultivate metta, or loving kindness, and compassion. The third one is gratitude and equanimity. Then the fourth one, curiosity and freshness. Number 5, impermanence. Number 6, non-judgment, non-competing. Number 7, being oriented towards exploration rather than achievement, or as I say, showing up versus showing off. And lastly, number 8, being mindful of our relationship with intensity. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk about today, and I hope that's interesting to you. So Please feel free to give me any feedback or ask questions or tell me what resonated with you or what didn't make any sense at all. And we'll keep talking about it. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time. So that's today's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, please share it with a friend and or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and help others find us that way. To learn more about my work, the Moved to Meditate class library, live online classes, teacher trainings, and private lessons, go to movedtomeditate.yoga. Thanks so much for listening.